Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking an absolutely wild story straight from the ancient texts of the Mahabharata. We are talking cunning deception, devastating anger, and honestly, a masterclass in high-stakes diplomacy. We're going to look at how an ancient kingdom faced total, complete annihilation, not from some invading army, but from the fiery wrath of one highly protective father. And we'll see the extraordinary lengths a king went to just to save his people. Okay, so let's dive right into this bizarre, inciting incident. Picture this. How does a desperate ruler justify risking the utter destruction of his own kingdom just to save it from a drought? We're looking at King Lomapada of Anga. The man desperately needs a miracle to bring rain to his parched lands. And to get it, well, he orchestrates the kidnapping of a young, spiritually powerful boy named Rishyasringa. But this isn't just any kid. He happens to be the only son of a sage with enough pent-up mystical power to literally incinerate the world. Section 1. The Father's Warning. Our story actually starts in total isolation, deep in the woods, with a seriously overprotective father. The great sage Vibhandaka is intensely dedicated to his penances, and he is trying his hardest to keep his incredibly naive son entirely cut off from the outside world. He knows the outside world is full of distractions, so he resorts to some pretty extreme parenting techniques. And what's super fascinating here is how Vibhandaka essentially gaslights his own son. See, the king had sent beautiful courtesans into the forest to lure the boy away, but when Vibhandaka catches wind of them, he tells his son these women are actually wicked Rakshasas, flesh-eating demons masquerading in beautiful forms just to ruin their pious deeds. When the boy excitedly describes the fragrant garlands and sweet drinks the women shared with him, the father just doubles down. He claims those drinks are vile spirituous liquors consumed by unrighteous men, and that those bright garlands are strictly forbidden for saints. So absolutely convinced his home is under attack by these so-called demons, Vibhandaka leaves his son behind and goes hunting for them. The text tells us he spends 3 full days scouring the dense woods, trying to track down these phantom Rakshasas. After 72 straight hours of fruitless searching, he comes back to his hermitage completely empty-handed. But as we're about to see, 3 days is more than enough time for a clever king to pull off a flawless plan. Section 2. The Floating Hermitage Heist. Now here's where the trap springs. During the father's 3-day absence, everything is meticulously set for what is undeniably the ultimate mythological heist. The king's agents were just waiting for this exact window, the second the terrifyingly powerful father is out of the picture. And the speed of this kidnapping is incredible. The very moment Vibhandaka leaves to gather fruits and hunt demons, the courtesan returns to the hermitage. Rishyasringa is absolutely delighted to see her, and he actually suggests they leave together before his strict dad gets back. So the courtesans trick the eager boy into boarding a vessel they've prepared. But get this, it's not just a simple boat. It's an exceedingly white floating vessel entirely disguised as a beautiful forest hermitage. They unmoor the vessel, keeping the boy thoroughly entertained the whole way, and sail straight to King Lomapada's palace in Anga. And boom, the moment they arrive, the king's desperate gamble pays off in spectacular fashion. He immediately places the kidnapped boy within the female quarters of the palace. And instantly, almost like magic, the heavens open up. Miraculous rain pours down, flooding the parched world with water and saving the kingdom of Anga from its terrible drought. King Lomapada's desire is completely fulfilled, and in his sheer joy, he bestows his own daughter, Santa, on Rishyasringa in marriage. But wait, as the rain falls and the royal wedding celebrations kick off, we're faced with a literal multi-million-dollar question. The king got his rain, sure, but he also just kidnapped the only child of a man whose mystical power rivals the sun and the god of fire. How on earth is King Lomapada going to survive Vibhandaka's inevitable, world-ending vengeance? Section 3. The Path of Appeasement. What happens next is an absolute masterclass in ancient crisis management and diplomacy. King Lomapada knows he can't fight this stage with weapons. He has to use psychology to defuse a walking nuclear bomb before it even reaches his city gates. So he executes this genius 3-step mitigation strategy. First, like we mentioned, he marries his daughter Santa to the boy, instantly making Rishyasringa royal family. Second, he maps out the exact road Vibhandaka will take to track down his son. And all along this route, the king places plentiful, stout cowherds, freshly plowed fields, and massive herds of cattle. Third, and this is the most crucial part, he gives these cowherds a strict command. When the great saint approaches, they must join their palms like loyal slaves and tell him that all this magnificent wealth belongs entirely to his son.
Meanwhile, back in the forest, Vibhandaka gets back from his totally useless demon hunt. He gathers some fruits and roots, looks for his kid, and finds the hermitage completely empty. He instantly suspects the king is behind this. The text says he becomes exceedingly wroth and is physically tortured by his anger. Burning with fierce wrath, he sets his course straight toward the king's city of Champa. His mind is made up. He is going to burn the king, his city, and his entire territory to absolute ashes.
But here's the catch. Vibhandaka is traveling on foot. On his march toward Champa, he naturally grows fatigued and hungry, and right when he's at his most physically vulnerable, he stumbles upon those exact cowherd settlements the king strategically placed. The cowherds take him in, honor him beautifully, and offer him hospitality fit for a king. When the rested, well-fed sage finally asks them, "To whom do ye belong?" they all come right up to him and deliver this brilliant, anger-diffusing sentence. "All this wealth hath been provided for thy son."
Section 4. A saint's anger tamed. And you know what? That clever diplomatic bribery works like an absolute charm. It completely flips the momentum of the story. At every single stop along his journey, the sage is honored in the exact same way, and it slowly drains that world-burning fury right out of him. By the time he reaches the city gates, he isn't a raging inferno anymore. He's a highly respected father-in-law arriving to inspect his son's massive new estate. The final blow to his anger happens when he actually lays eyes on the newlyweds. Vibhandaka arrives in the city and beholds his son, Rishyasringa, who is honored and glowing, looking exactly like the great god Indra in heaven. Standing right beside him is his new daughter-in-law, the Princess Shanta, looking, as the text puts it, like lightning issuing from a cloud. Seeing these beautiful hamlets provided for his son, and taking in this radiant heavenly couple, the sage's great resentment is instantly and permanently appeased.
Crisis averted. The world-burning sage, whose power could have easily reduced the entire kingdom of Anga to cinders, instead expresses great satisfaction with the Earth's ruler. He doesn't burn the city down. He doesn't curse the king. Instead, he simply leaves his son there with a single command: do all that is agreeable to the king, and you're permitted to stay in the city until a son is born to you. Only after he has a child must he return to the forest hermitage without fail.
So, Rishyasringa does exactly as his father commands and eventually heads back to the woods. But he definitely doesn't go alone. He is accompanied by his wife, Santa, whose devotion becomes absolutely legendary. The text elevates her status by comparing her obedience to the greatest mythical couples in history. We're talking Rohini waiting upon the moon, Arundhati upon Vashishta, Lopamudra upon Agastya, Damayanti to Nala, Sachi to the thunderbolt holder, and Indrasena to Mudgala. Santa waits affectionately upon Rishyasringa in the wood, cementing her very own lasting cultural legacy in this holy hermitage. Which brings us to the end of this incredibly wild diplomatic journey. The holy hermitage where they lived still bears his name and holy fame today, inviting people to perform ablutions and have their desires fulfilled. But as we reflect on this whole story, it leaves us with a fascinating final thought. If a disguise as absurd as a beautiful floating hermitage, combined with some strategically placed cattle and well-coached cowherds, can save an entire kingdom from a saint's fiery wrath, what other incredible diplomatic secrets from ancient history are just waiting to be unpacked in our next explainer? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the history you think you know.